to Dragons on the Wall, our weekly Game of Thrones show where we dig into each episode of the final season of Game of Thrones. Tonight we're going into full spoilers for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Yes, we finally know the name of this episode. I am Terri Schwartz, and this episode had me feeling like Podrick Payne because I need an overflowing cup of wine to get through discussing tonight's amazing episode. Joining me is
Laura Prudhomme, and I'm feeling like Oberyn Martell because I would rather have my eyes gouged out than have to see poor sweet baby Arya getting all sexy. I didn't need to see it. Oh my God.
Don't worry, Laura. We are going to remind you all the horrible things Arya has done over the course of this show. But with us again is Joshua.
Yes, I am Joshua Yale, and I'm actually feeling like Littlefinger, completely unrelated to the events of this episode, but I just worked so hard to climb the chaos ladder that is IGN to get a spot on this show, and only to not be there for the first episode.
I know, Joshua. We missed you. We missed you last week. We brought in our Eric's first video ever was in last week's Dragons on the Wall.
That was my squire. He did a great job.
Yes.
He did.
You trained him well.
You trained him up just like Pod to go back. I love that episode. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Obviously, so much happened in tonight's episode. We will get to the Arya of it all. We will get to the Pod and the Brienne of it all. But first, let's start sort of where we started last week with the Sansa or Daenerys and Jon conflict slowly brewing. Right? We finally got that reveal at the end of Daenerys finding out that Jon is a Targaryen. But we also had a really pointed scene between Daenerys and Sansa where she again challenged Daenerys and basically said, like, why would I want you to be our queen? So let's kind of unpack this. Which of these two scenes do you guys want to start with?
I think the Sansa one.
Yeah.
Because that one, they had me going for a second. I was like, oh wow, these two girls are just gonna
need to talk it out.
Yeah, have some girl talk and be real about everything and just put it all on the table and deal with it. But then things got a little messy at the end there, and I hate that storytelling thing where you like kind of leave a question on the table, then they're like someone interrupts or the phone rings or something. So yeah, that totally happened. They're like, oh, I'm a lady, and like, oh, gotta go, can't answer that burning question. I'd be like, get out, sit. We're gonna finish this conversation. This is really important.
Here's the thing, though, for me about the Sansa and Daenerys scene is it's all a what if. Like, what if they don't even survive? I think that they must know that, too. Like, it is a question literally for another day, and that other day is when they come out the other side of this Night King conflict. And I liked that Bran had that line to Jaime where he's like, why do you even think, it was like, why do you even think there will be something that comes next, basically?
What happens afterwards? Who can stay? We'll all be dead.
Exactly. But the Jon and Daenerys scene absolutely needed to be done before the fight, and he waited.
Did it though?
I think
Could he not have waited until after the fight? Do we need to get super awkward right before we go into a life or death battle where your mind is hopefully on other things like defeating the Night King? Maybe he could have just put a pin in that just for like another day.
He would have been distracted, and he kept ghosting her, pun not intended. Like so many times during the episode, like he pieced out after their small council meeting,
like,
whatever. Yeah, I feel like he had to get it off his chest, but he could have picked a better time. What did you think about Daenerys' reaction, though?
It's as I kind of said last week, and I've also written a story about this on the website, I feel like we think that Daenerys is going to react more violently or strongly to this than she did. Obviously, she's right to be suspicious that suddenly Jon's best friend and brother are the only ones to have this very vital information.
What's the right response?
Yeah. It's like, really? But I think that once she has time to actually think about it, and once Jon has a second, which is probably our real problem with the scene, right? That he didn't just say, I want to be king. I don't have any interest in it. You don't have to worry about me taking that from you. That's not
unless
my
he's
bag.
changed his mind
It's
since
true.
the last episode.
Like 20 minutes before.
Something would have to happen over between now and when the battle ends that would change his mind on her. But right now, not only does he love her, but she loves him. We got confirmation about that as well. So I think, when you add like the romance on top of it, it definitely makes things a little more complicated. But I think at the end of the day, they want the same thing. I think they both, because they love each other, want to get married. Then they would be ruling together. So what would it matter? They both have a really good claim to the throne.
Yeah.
So why?
It's even better. It's 2 Targaryens for the price of 1.
I think the thing that is really tripping Daenerys up is actually, to tie it back to her conversation with Sansa, she has spent her entire life with one goal, and that goal is to return to Westeros and sit on the Iron Throne. That is the thing that has kept her alive for years. And the idea, like she does kind of have the connection with Sansa where she's like, hey, you know, we're two ladies like trying to get respect like in a man's world basically, and I think she tried to forge a connection there. And I think the idea of once again to be usurped, to have a man, it originally was her brother Viserys, now it's Jon, sit on the Iron Throne when that like feels like it's hers by right? That's what she says, it's hers by right. I think that's going to be her biggest sticking point, and I don't know if she'll be able to get over it. Like, I think if Jon says, it's fine, I want you to be queen, that's one thing.
Right.
But I think Sam was right where he's like, Daenerys wouldn't give up the throne in the way that Jon so quickly would.
She's like, another man.
No, I feel like that's kind of teased in the conversation with Sansa where she's like, I love him too, I'm here fighting his battle. So maybe she's like, I don't care about the throne as much as I thought I did now that I have this connection that I've always wanted.
Absolutely not.
I really did like
Believe
something
in
that the
the
showrunners
good
talked
of
about in last week's episode, or inside the episode, was about how they had the camera so tight on Jon's face to get the reaction, because Sam knows the news, we know the news. The question is, how does Jon respond? And we see that again in this week where the camera's so tight on Daenerys. And I like that it was like fear. Like he's telling her this and she is like afraid of this, and as all the dots are coming together, like she doesn't want this to happen, she doesn't want this wrinkle, she wants the simplicity. She is kind of bitchy about it, like I think when she leaves and in like the next week's episode where she just seems very cold to Jon. And my fear is that while this is like taking this weight off Jon's chest, now he's told Daenerys, I hope it doesn't change the way they fight together in the battle. I don't know. Do you think she's...
Oh, it totally will. Like, you totally have to drop a drama bomb.
Well, that's
otherwise,
the
it's
thing.
just a really easy fight, and like it's like they're like a well-oiled machine working together. Like, no. Like, they're gonna have like stops for breaks for talks
Will
and
she
chats.
let him get on her dragon and fly
It's like,
right
this
all
is
around?
my dragon.
Yeah,
Mine now.
get your own ride. Uh-huh.
If you're a true Targaryen, you had your own dragon. Of course, we're like discounting the fact that they both could die next week, right? There's no guarantee that either of them are going to live through this next battle. Frankly, I think everyone's probably going to die, or most of our favorite characters. Like, there were all these cute moments this week, and I'm like, you're going to die. You're definitely going to die. Well, they just did that, so you're going to die. Like, but I'm curious to see if Jon and Dany get out the other side unscathed.
I feel like they've got to. It's too much unfinished business to linger, to wrap that all up in one episode. But who can say?
So I think it's safe to say that Jon and Dany, or Jon in particular, used the worst use of his time for his last night on Earth by waiting till the last possible moment to drop this truth bomb. But everyone else made really, ranging from surprising to incredibly endearing life choices. And like really the back half of this episode was kind of everyone winding down and figuring out if they had one last night to live, what would it be? Let's start with you, Joshua. What was your favorite other character's choice for how to spend their last night on this world?
Well, I do want to give honorable mention to Tyrion, who's like, let's get drunk.
In true Tyrion fashion.
Yeah, like tell stories and singing and everything.
Yep.
But obviously, I think Brienne, this was her episode. The title of the episode, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. She is a character who has just tried so hard to be good, to be just, to do the right thing. Always, when she swears an oath, she fulfills it, whether it's like complicated or not, whether it's good for her or not. She's one of the few characters, like along with like Ned Stark and Jon, who's just incredibly loyal and just a good person deep down. So you want to see people like that get what they deserve in a good way, right? And that never happens in this kind of show. And so for her to not only be knighted, and they don't make knights. Women can't be knights. It's tradition. F that. But it came from Jaime Lannister, who she has a very long, complicated relationship with. Pardon me. He is someone she has longed to have the respect from. And even she says it in this episode of like, oh, you're gonna like make fun of me again. And also she has very complicated, true like love feelings for him, which they confirmed after the episode when they were talking about it. So for all those things to come together at once, I was like, oh, And just tears came. Tears. Who cried?
Same.
We all
yeah,
cried.
We both
Okay.
cried.
All cried.
The slow build too, like from the beginning of Jaime being on trial and Brienne being the one who stands up for him and convinces them to, and you see it in his eyes too, the
like,
acknowledgement of like, but the acknowledgement of what it meant for Brienne to say that.
Yep.
You see it again when she's waiting for him to make fun of her, and he's like, I want to fight under your service.
Yeah.
Like, what a great honor. She literally doesn't know how to process it.
Yeah.
And then finally at the end, I mean, there's that funny, like, my favorite part of the episode was watching Jaime watch Brienne react to all the things Tormund was saying to her, because he was kind of seeing this all play out for the first time. But like when Tormund makes the comment, if I was king, I'd do this. And Jaime's like, you know what? I can. To me, like, if we never get them consummating their love, like romantic love, we never get one of them saying to the other, I love you. To me, that is what that scene was. Him doing that for her was his way of telling her, like, I love you, I respect you. Like, he's just this woman that I think he's never met a woman like her. When his highest standard was Cersei, his sister. Like, she was his ideal, and I think he saw something in Brienne that it took him a while to really identify, but I think he does love her.
Yeah.
And it makes my heart warm. Like, that's, and seeing Gwendolyn Christie, like, just
she's so
smile.
good.
Brienne smile for what has to be the first time we've seen her smile like that. Like,
That's
you
already
feel
become
it.
a meme.
Yeah.
I know, but like, you feel it. You feel it so deeply, and like, what a beautiful way to kind of enter into something.
Yeah.
One of them is gonna die next week. Let's face
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
that's like a
It's gonna be-
storytelling rule that
Yeah.
when something goes well for someone, something
Right.
really bad has to happen for them. And if Jaime's going to be out there on the battlefield with her, I think she would probably gladly lay down her life
Yeah,
for
who do
him.
you think it's gonna be?
I think it's going to be Jaime.
Gosh.
He's had that moment now. He's kind of had that redemptive arc. He's admitted that they're now on equal footing with each other. They're both knights. They both respect each other. He's completely happy to serve under her command.
Yes.
No potty mouth. No.
I
dirty-
think there will probably be
no.
some kind of like cheesy.
I think, I hope
scene
it's
of,
not like
her-
a dying in her arms type thing to kind of mirror the
Gendry
bathtub
one.
scene with, you
Yeah.
know, where she catches him when he passes out. I don't know. I don't.
Crossing my fingers.
No, we don't want him to die. It'll be sad.
Oh
But
gosh.
but we've all said that we think he's gonna die, so it's
Well,
gonna happen,
that's true.
right?
I mean, I think he has to survive so he can be the one to kill Cersei later.
You think it's gonna be him and not Tyrion?
Well, Tyrion did get a little dark.
He did. He was
Yeah.
like, "I'm gonna go down there and kill her when I'm dead." Which
There
is the
there
most Game
also
of
is the
Thrones.
theory that Euron is technically the little brother, so he could be the Valonqar who kills her. Or I still stand by my, like, she dies in a miscarriage, like death, birth bed scenario, like her mother did.
And if you guys are wondering what Terry's talking about, I did a full write-up on the Cersei prophecy, how will
Yes,
she
you
die,
did.
what's going on with her baby theory thing on IGN.com.
Yeah, we have all the Game of Thrones content you could possibly want. We know the breakdown you've been waiting for ever since Laura queued it up, though, is how you feel about how Arya chose to spend her night.
I am totally happy for her to pop her cherry. It's like, smoke 'em if you got 'em. It's last night on Earth. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you, see how it all shakes out? But because we've grown up with Maisie Williams, even though she's 22, she's perfectly
She
legal.
looks young.
She looks young. She's
like your
very
kid
tiny.
sister, yeah.
And we have seen her grow up from like yay high. So to just see her in a sex scene was just the most trauma. It was like watching like a family member. I was like, I don't need to see that. Like I'm happy for them to have a happy moment. I just like cut away to a like sunset or a like waves crashing on the beach or something. I don't know. It was
The
a lot.
hound looking down through like going, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what they need. Another
cutaway
sex
to the
scene,
hound.
but a happier one than Sansa and
like
Ramsay's that
binoculars.
we see through another male character's eyes. No, I think I've come around to this scene. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my god, this is the ultimate fan service. First of all, I was like, I can't
Oh, yeah.
believe. But of course, if you're gonna bring Gendry back, I was like joking to myself about it, like ha 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 when they have sex, and it happens, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe the show is giving us this. But I do think it's very true to show Arya.
Yeah.
I will differentiate her from book Arya, who I would be very surprised, first of all, if Gendry even comes back, but especially if they decide to have sex in this way. But I do think, like, it's true to the character we know in the show. Like, she has done everything, right? And she, what do we say to the God of Death? Not today. But if the God of Death comes tomorrow, then of course, like, Arya, Have sex for the first time.
Yeah.
Live your
Get
truth.
it out of the way.
It did have that like younger sibling thing for me though, where I was like, oh my god, and like my little sister as I'm watching her have sex, like that was kind of my reaction where I was like clutching my pearls. Where I know worse things, more gruesome things have happened. Literally the scene you mentioned where Oberyn gets his face popped, and I think that's why it kind of made me squirm at first. That and kind of the fan serviciness of it all, but you know what?
It is
good
in character.
for Arya.
It's in character. She's assertive. She knows what she wants. She's been through enough that, she should have control of her destiny in that way. I just didn't need to see it.
The Jaime and Brienne knighting scene was a better sex scene for me than the actual Gendry.
Leave some stuff to the imagination, right?
Yeah, I could have used them cutting away when they started maybe undoing the clothes. It didn't need to see it go all the way.
Yeah.
Because, like you two, you've already said it. I won't repeat it too much. But it's like a little girl, a little sister. Aww.
Yeah. It is interesting. So Entertainment Weekly had up an interview with Maisie Williams right after the episode where they said, when it came time to kind of figure out the beats of that scene, the showrunners basically gave her the run of like, how much are you comfortable with showing? And they completely went by her lead. And I guess she was basically like, Arya's not going to flash anyone. And then she kind of chose to show that it was like some side boob, a little bit of butt. We'll make sure. No, I'm kidding. We aren't going to pop up that shot for everyone watching this in video. Sorry, guys. You can see that through your HBO subscription. But I did think that was really interesting that Maisie kind of had that much control over it. Though, interestingly, apparently Sophie Turner, her best friend who plays Sansa Stark, was speed reading through the scripts when they got them. And she got to that when Maisie was still reading script 1. And she was like, stop whatever you're doing. Go right to this page. Read this scene. Like, you have to be aware of it. And Maisie apparently was like, that was all I knew about this season for the longest time, is that Arya has sex. Yeah.
I actually really like hearing what happened behind the scenes there, of that they gave her the choice and let her have some of the direction control. Because as we know, from like Emilia Clarke talking about how like she didn't want to do all those nude scenes up front, and then she made it a point that she didn't want to do them anymore. Yeah. Right? She wanted people to
Except
appreciate.
for that one that she did choose to do
yes,
later.
exactly. So I think that they learned their lesson on that one, and Maisie Williams got to do it in a way that she thought was tasteful and she was comfortable with as an actress. Because in a way, some people we make fun of Game of Thrones for being all about like boobs and stuff and sex
dragons.
Position. Yes, exactly. But also some people might think of it as like, ooh, I got to be naked on Game of Thrones.
It's possible.
Sure, yeah. So we spent a lot of time on those two, but let's bang through, pun not intended, the rest of the kind of reunions we had tonight. I swear, everyone was going to call me on it, but I did not intend that. It's late, guys. We just watched the episode. So next up, we have Sansa choosing to eat dinner with Theon. Even their reunion, I thought, was so moving when they had their moment of them coming back together. What did you think about the choice of them to kind of spend that evening together? In a platonic way.
It was nice. It's good to see that Theon actually gets a few moments in this episode to redeem himself after all the ways he screwed the Starks. Up until this point, he obviously gets that moment with Bran where he pledges the Ironborn to protect Bran from the Night King after stealing Winterfell from them and faking Bran and Rickon's deaths. So it was overdue, I think. Joshua is not convinced.
I hate Theon so much. I hate him. And he's like, oh, I'll defend you, Bran. Dude, you're a pushover. Like, you can't
That's
do
true. I don't know that I'd
anything.
rely on him to protect
That's
Bran.
why he has the Ironborn as well. It's not just Bran. Or it's not just Theon. I think at this point, though, Theon is
earned it now.
I think he can't make that same mistake again. Like, Game of Thrones cannot repeat itself that many more times. But I think he'll probably die defending Bran.
Yeah. Right, but will that be enough to earn him redemption? Like putting his weak, frail body in front of Bran and then getting killed?
In front of Bran's weak, frail body? I don't know. I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, he can poke it.
I was trying to remember how Sansa and Theon kind of left it, and it would have been in the woods when Brienne came and saved them, and Theon is like, I'm going to go back to the Ironborn to see my sister, and she wouldn't have necessarily known what's been up with him since we know that she and Dany didn't have a lot of girl time to be like, well, you have some Ironborn people who are hanging out with us, too. Mm-hmm. So I did really like that little reunion scene between them.
What I did like about the Theon and Sansa scene is that Sansa, who's, like kind of leader of the Winterfellian people, Winterfellian, I don't know.
Yeah.
But she was out spending that time with the people and among the people and not up, housed away, like getting drunk with Tyrion.
Yeah,
It's true. Yeah.
Though Varys notably absent, not partaking in any of this. Some people were noting that. A couple of other reunions: the Hound and Beric getting drunk on the roof after Arya left them.
Dug it.
Very, very funny to have them back together. And then Sam giving Jorah Heartsbane. What did you think about this moment?
I thought that was interesting because it's kind of like setting up Jorah to die, I feel, because like he's got to go out doing something real cool. He needs a cool weapon that can kill White Walkers, and he has that. And now like his storyline with Dany is long since it's past. You know, it's ready to end. And I think he'll do like a heroic, cool, sacrificial act, and it'll be goodbye for Jorah.
Side note, I did love that finally the show acknowledged that Lyanna Mormont and Jorah Mormont are related, and we had that really cute scene between them. Like, that was all I needed.
Yep.
That was all I needed. What I did need a bit more for, and I wore the shirt for it today and everything, like, our Ghost Watch has ended. Ghost is here.
Kind of.
But apparently, the show wants us to think he's just been there in the background of every scene, unacknowledged, I guess, like, out of frame slightly, that we wouldn't have known that he was just there. Like, what did you think about the way that they just dropped Ghost back in, given kind of all the external conversation that has happened about Ghost's absence since the season 6 premiere?
It's ridiculous, but the problem is that it's kind of behind the scenes stuff that we know about. Obviously, the Direwolves are very expensive, so they can't. So we know that. In the show, it's ridiculous that Jon has not had a scene with Ghost since, I think, season 6?
Episode 2, I think. I said the premiere, but I think it was when he, because Ghost was there when Jon came back to life.
Yeah.
And that would have been the last time
Well, he
we
was
saw
supposed to appear in Battle of the Bastards, and they didn't have the money. They said that, so they cut him out. But I think there was supposed to be a scene in, I think, season 7 where he leaves Winterfell. There was a scene, apparently, one of the writers said, that was cut where Ghost was like outside and Jon's like, take care of Sansa, and then was supposed to leave, and it got cut for time. So like there have been opportunities for Ghost that, you know,
Ghost is the Matt Damon on Jimmy Kimmel of Game of Thrones now. Like they keep, like everyone keeps just kind of everyone who cares, I would say, just keep scoffing at this idea that it's too expensive to add the Direwolves in. I think they just like haven't found them to be that important.
It used to be so
devastating.
Remember?
Yeah.
In the books, like
I
with
think
the
they
War
still are
King,
important in the books.
It's insane how they've gone away from that when it seems like such an integral part of what George is doing that it just breaks my heart a little bit.
Well, I think it's a good sign that we saw a little of Ghost now, because I think that means he probably did make it into the Battle of Winterfell,
so.
which
Agreed.
we're getting
Like
in episode
remember,
3.
he's here. Then when he shows up, we won't be like, what?
So
My question, though,
we get it all out of the way this week.
If we had Ghost and Jon in Battle of the Bastards, it wouldn't be as cool as what we'll probably get next episode. So I'm fine with it. I would have rather had that budget go to like dragons and stuff anyways.
No,
rather
screw
than having
those dragons. We've seen enough dragons.
rather than having like patting Ghost on the head. It's fine.
I don't know. I wish there was some acknowledgement again, because it kind of goes back to the fact, like, I know Jon was away from Winterfell for a big chunk of last season, so that's fine. But like, hopefully Jon cares about his direwolf. He's one of 2 left alive, which, as we're pointing out, Summer, Lady, Grey Wind, Shaggy Dog, all dead. Nymeria, though, still alive. And I'm curious if you guys think, you know, in the books and in the show, she kind of has been leading this pack of wolves, just running rampant across the countryside. Do you think that they will play a factor before the end, or do you think Arya's scene with Nymeria last season was like the last of it?
That was such a good send-off. I don't need to see her again.
I feel like that was the button on them, which is really sad, because I would love to see them come back, but I think that the show intended that to be like, okay, this is where she's been. Never think about it again.
Right. I just don't want Ghost to die
No.
after this long Ghost watch, this long, cold, sad Ghost watch.
And if you guys didn't get it yet, Terry is a huge dog person. In fact, both of her dogs were in the office tonight.
I know. Well, if they were well behaved at all, they would have been on this podcast, but you will never see them. But you can see them on my Instagram. Good plug. All right. We have been going long, but I do want to talk about the one last big thing that actually this is my plug to an article that I dug into on the site. And that is, let's talk about Bran's plan to kill the Night King. To briefly recap, Bran is going to use himself as bait in the Godswood at Winterfell, because as we know, he's been marked by the Night King, and the Night King will come to him, and he thinks this is the only way to draw out the Night King and hopefully kill him in order to destroy, the vampire rules of Game of Thrones. Now, if we kill the Night King, presumably all the other White Walkers he made, and thus the Whites they made, will fall. Now, as part of this, Bran revealed that apparently the Night King has been trying to kill the Three-Eyed Raven for years, which is an interesting revelation. I'm like, please tell me more about this. Also, Arya asks, can Dragon's Fire defeat the Night King? And Bran says nobody's tried, which you think someone would have tried about that. What do you guys think about this plan? Do you think it's destined to fail, knowing we have 3 more episodes of Game of Thrones, or do you think there's more to it than meets the eye?
That would be the twist of all twists if they successfully orchestrate this plan, like pull it off and kill the Nightwing. Oh gosh, it is late, you guys. Epic crossover I didn't even dream of, but now I can't stop thinking about it. That they would kill the Night King on episode 3.
Yeah.
That would blow my mind. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're destined to lose the Battle of Winterfell. It'll be awesome, but a lot of people will die and they'll lose, and they'll have to run back to King's Landing, and then drama will ensue, and they're like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, Cersei, can we come in?
And she's like, no.
Yeah. So
hard pass.
Bye.
So I do think it's interesting, like how they made up sort of like a set of rules, and they kind of throw out the strategy of the fire. But yeah, the fact that they actually did not come up with a way to kill him in that scene. But
no
what are you going off of?
Deck
You
either, right?
literally just got Theon there.
That's where you're putting all your eggs, is it?
Well,
the Theon basket.
John did say we'll all be nearby because
Yes.
they don't want to make it so obvious
Yes.
that they're like waiting there for him in this moment, but we'll see.
We'll
Laura,
see.
though, you're aware of kind of where I went with this theory. Do you want to
Yes.
break that part down?
No, you should break it down. But I like that it's kind of the circular, obviously, as your theory goes into, the White Walkers were created by the Children of the Forest in a weirwood tree, Godswood situation. So I like the circularness of kind of setting that up, where this confrontation could come down to Bran and the Night King and a weirwood tree. But yeah, I'm with Joshua that I don't think it will be that easy to take him down.
Yeah, we have a freelance writer, Alicia Lutz, who has been really pushing for the Isle of Faces to play a role in the show, which is like, apparently, they haven't really addressed it in the show. It's kind of in the God's Eye Lake, which is in the center of Westeros, which is where supposedly the Children of the Forest, that might have been like where they created the White Walkers. That's not clear in the show. But certainly in the books, that's supposed to be like where a bunch of the weirwood trees are in a very important place. So maybe they fall back if they fail here in doing that, but which I'm talking very much around my theory, which
Tell us your theory.
I know, I've been waiting with bated breath. They've read the article by now. No, I think so. I just completed a rewatch, as we talked about in the previous couple episodes, and the one thing that really stood out to me was the way the White Walkers are created. If you remember, the Children of the Forest had a man against a weirwood tree and plunged dragonglass into his heart, and that was the thing that turned him into the Night King or whoever, or the first White Walker. Interestingly enough, when you cut forward to meeting Benjen / Cold Hands, the thing the Children of the Forest did to stop his turn into a White Walker was they plunged dragonglass into his heart. And so I wonder if Bran's plan to lure the Night King into the Godswood isn't just to kill him, but to somehow replicate the same scenario that he was created out of. And if it's like Jon or whoever with a dragonglass spear plunging it into the Night King's heart, but pinning him into the weirwood tree in the process, could that reverse what's happened to him? Could it be different than just simply defeating him? Could it be something a bit more bittersweet where I don't know that it would be as like wholesome as suddenly he became the man he was before, but there's something else that happens to kind of stop him from pursuing this like bloodthirsty quest created by the Children of the Forest to defeat the First Men. I think that would be just so much more interesting than like, and then he shattered into a bunch of ice.
Yeah, life kind of coming from death. A dream of spring, one might say. It could be very poetic.
So do you think that by the end of episode 3, they would carry out that plan?
I think that will be what the plan is, and I think it will fail. And I think there could be, again, like that's why I'm kind of bringing up that the Isle of Faces or something of its ilk could be relevant, because there are like, it can't be as simple as they just defeat him here and then there are 3 episodes of falling action, 3 very long episodes of falling action. Like the one thing we know for certain is going to happen is this big battle against the Night King in this episode. And like we knew that going into the season, and everything else after that is a question mark.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little terrifying. It's like our own long night that we're going into at that point where it's everything is up for grabs. So I think one way or another it'll be surprising what they end up doing, and I'm scared to speculate because I don't know what comes next.
I will say this. I do think Bran's probably not going to make it out alive. Or
Agreed.
Theon, thank God. But I do think that Bran will gain some sort of advantage on the Night King, and that information will be passed on to the survivors, or he will weaken the Night King in some very important way that, again, will be passed on to the survivors. They'll know about it. So I think his sacrifice will mean something.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll learn some more about the Night King as well. I think they said we will be learning a little bit more about his history. But yeah, I think they will gain something, but they're going to lose hard.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's very interesting that Tyrion kind of makes a point of sitting down with Bran to learn his story.
Yes.
I thought that was a moment that had a lot of foreshadowing behind it that we're supposed to not really pay attention to until later. So it feels like maybe Bran has imparted something to Tyrion that will be much more important later, especially with, how everyone's been undermining him and his intellect over the past few episodes.
I think it's really important you brought that up because one, yes, he could have told him any number of things about the Night King and his own family, anything.
Yeah.
But also, he probably told him about the Jon and Dany business, right?
I was thinking, what if he told him that Jaime pushed him out of the tower?
Oh no!
Right?
Do you think he would when he kind of made a point of saying
Of not.
that
I finally got my Things We Do for Love line,
You
by
did.
the way. It was just a couple episodes late.
Yeah, I feel like Bran isn't. He kind of makes the point that he's not Bran anymore. He's not really vindictive. He's not thinking about it in that way, where
Right.
he'd want to kind of, drop this bombshell and mess things up for Jaime moving forward. So I don't know.
He's named after Bran the Builder, so he built the bridge and got over it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Or flew over it as a three-eyed raven.
Yeah.
Before we leave this episode in our rearview mirror, let's talk about something that's been speculated a lot looking forward to next week's episode, which is kind of hinges on this idea that the crypts are the safest place in all of Winterfell for us to put our children and our women and our
Varys.
non-fighters and our Varys.
Everyone very vulnerable should go into the crypts. They're very safe. 15 times this episode, we've heard how safe this crypt is.
So the popular theory, if you are not aware, is that we don't know the statute of limitations on when the Night King can bring back the dead, and the crypts obviously have the dead of the Starks and
Many generations past.
Many generations, including Ned Stark, right?
Yep.
He made it back to Winterfell. So the question is everyone in the crypts going to suddenly find themselves faced with the reanimated bones of former Starks? This is your final chance to make your predictions. Laura seems to be nodding her head, saying hers. What you think?
That poor tiny little girl that Davos was talking to, she's dead, man.
Shireen 2.0 is so
She's so
dead.
Sorry, little Scarface Shireen. It's not going to happen for you. Or she's going to be like a super badass like Arya and secretly like take a few down. But I think she's going to die horribly. I think they're all going to die horribly because it's such heavy foreshadowing that they can't not pay that off at this point. Something's going down in those crypts. That scene we have in the trailer of like Arya running through the corridor against like something that's clearly horrified her to her core. Could that be Ned Stark? Like a gross falling apart Ned Stark? I hope not, but it seems like it could be, right?
Zombie Ned Stark holding his own decapitated head, staggering towards his daughter,
that would
who's
make me
become
run.
so confident, calm, cool, and collected, but now is running scared. Oh, yeah.
The biggest FU to fans, though, will be if this happens and they still don't do Lady Stoneheart.
No Lady Stoneheart for you. None.
Because canonically, like, Catelyn has not had her bones brought back to Winterfell. Listen, I want that deleted scene.
Just give us Lady Stoneheart.
There's no way.
That's the
There's no way.
post-credits end of this show. Like, once we found out who's on the Iron Throne, it'll be Lady Stoneheart just sitting down.
Just sitting there. I still have faith that she'll be important in some way. So I feel like this was such a big episode, such a great episode. A lot of stuff we didn't get to, which you will be able to get more coverage of that this week on Game of Thrones. But Laura, Joshua, thank you so much for breaking down this episode. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on Dragons on the Wall. We'll be back with another episode next week as we react to the Battle of Winterfell, which has been extended to a whopping 82 minutes. I am so excited. This episode episode may be ending, but we've got plenty more Game of Thrones goodness for you on IGN, like Laura's review of the episode, which is live on the website right now. And if you want more Game of Thrones discussion fun time, if this whole show was not enough for you, you can tune into our weekly live IGN Watch Party pre- and post-shows, which are streaming on any platform where you like to watch IGN. They are very fun and very goofy and very tonally different than Dragons on the Wall, but I think you'll have a lot of fun if you do tune in. To tide you over for the long week into next week's Game of Thrones, be sure to check out our series When I Died on Game of Thrones, where we look back at some of the show's most violent moments with the actors who were beheaded, impaled, or otherwise made dead in a shocking fashion. And you, the fans, have made IGN one of the most active comment sections on the internet. So we had Brienne and Jaime respond to some of the most priceless IGN comments we could find. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
Speaking of comments, we love hearing your thoughts, so be sure to weigh in on this week's topics in the comments below. And if you love us too, then be sure to follow and subscribe to IGN for more Game of Thrones. We'll see you next week.